When we last left our adventurers, they were stuck in the 20th century, so they could pretty much do some team up with people after the whole Korvac fiasco. So let's travel to 1990 when the Guardians of the Galaxy finally got their own ongoing series, not under someone else's banner. Oh wait, sorry, instead of doing this in publication order, let's hop to 1991 in a series of 4 annuals that explain how they came back to the 30th century from the 20th century. All this is told in the 4-part story Korvac Quest, which ran through 4 separate annuals in 1991. The first annual, Fantastic Four Annual 24, is where we learn that Korvac didn't actually kill himself. He sent his essence, energy, mojo, whatever you want to call it, to a different place to avoid the ultimate nullifier, because apparently Galactus had used it on him since Korvac stole Galactus' power and all that jazz. Well, the Guardians of the Galaxy and the Fantastic Four team up to find him in Australia, inside of a female body. Oh hey, a cameo from Gateway. Neat. Don't know who Gateway is? He's an Australian Aboriginal who worked with the X-Men during their Outback days. So long story short, Mr. Fantastic uses a pocket time travel device to redirect the ultimate nullifier from when it was originally going to hit Korvac's body to the new vessel in Australia. But Korvac sends his consciousness to one of his ancestors in the far future. Well, the far future of the 26th century. Thus begins their adventure in the Mighty Thor Annual 16. This era's Thor, Dargo, assists them in their fight against the tubby-put-upon working-class descendant, Varley. While they do hold their own, they can't land a hit on him, so they fall back and regroup, but Varley does find them. Eventually, Thor redirects his super eye beams back at him, and the Korvac energy goes somewhere else. In Silver Surfer Annual 4, we're still in the 26th century by the way, the power inhabits Marshak, a man who has used it to create a utopian society and is good friends with the Surfer. So when the Guardians show up to take that power, it is an all-out fight. Though when Surfer learns that the man's power is rooted in Galactus, he stops fighting and actually talks Marshak into, after using it to repair the damage of the fight, letting the power go, where it then jumps to the 30th century. The Guardians follow the power to 2977 AD in Guardians of the Galaxy Annual 1. They find Korvac's birth location on the blue area of the moon and begin to fight with Korvac's father, who currently wields the power. The battle eventually leads them through the Watcher's domain until Korvac, the enemy, is born. And with that, Korvac regains his power. But he is still a baby. Now they have to figure out how to bring the baby to Galactus to end all this madness. Krugar, the Sorcerer Supreme of this time, and Doctor Strange, the Ancient One, appear. They put him in a mystic bubble and bounce over to Galactus' crib, where he reabsorbs his power, but leaves the baby's fate in the Guardians' hands. They decide to return the baby to his mother, which goes well, and Alita is made a full-fledged Guardian, complete with a new plunging neckline. While it is by no means a bad read, and it is a decent sequel to the Korvac saga, the biggest thing that hurts this is that it's a comic book in the 90s. While I do know it is technically only 91, so it's not deep into the 90s, the whole thing should have been building to this big drag out. But each issue, even the one where the guy with Korvac's energy went peacefully, we needed to have this padded out huge fight. But then again, each fight is different enough and unique enough to be nifty, so it ain't too shabby regardless. Back over to the main start of the Guardians ongoing, Jim Valentino pulls double shift as the writer and artist for the very first Guardians of the Galaxy #1, and it starts off in the middle of an adventure. So let's try doing this chronologically as it's depicted in the Mystic Fire mid-story. After their exploits during their team-ups after the Korvac saga, they went back to their time where they decide to stick together because they're like family now. So eventually they find a book that belongs to Yondu's people, where Vance swears one of the symbols and relics is Captain America's shield. They start following clues to the location, and on the planet Korg, they are attacked by Taserface.
Oh, I'm sorry. Your name is... It's Taserface?
That's right.
Do you shoot tasers out of your face?
It's metaphorical!
Which takes a group effort to fight, but only after he's defeated, the force of the Stark come. Who are the Starks? Game of Thrones jokes aside, when the Martians began their invasion of Earth, Tony Stark, fearing his tech would be used for evil, threw it all onto a rocket and launched it towards the sun. But as usual, when Stark launches rockets into space, it lands on a planet. Okay, really bad Planet Hulk reference there, but regardless, it lands on a planet where the natives start using that tech to basically strip mine their planet and then become an evil plague going world to world to enslave its population and mine their precious materials. This history lesson brought to you by Uatu the Watcher. Where was I in the comic? Alright, so the Starks attack and the Guardians fight them off, though Vance Astro gets his suit damaged, and we see that he still can't leave his suit. Yeah, I'm suddenly really unsure of the continuity that carried over to the new ongoing, but either way, Alita kills somebody. Yeah, midway through the fight, Alita just kills someone, and then her and Starhawk unfuse to become two separate people again. Starhawk is okay, but Alita is comatose, and Starhawk flies off. Yeah, that's a recurring thing, just him flying off. The fighting continues until they flee to the Freedom's Lady, where Vance gets an adamantium armor for his arm and part of his chest. Looks cool. But a Stark ship confronts them. Starhawk returns just in time to watch as the Freedom Lady is blasted into pieces. Firelord, the former Herald of Galactus, now Protector of the Galaxy, which does seem to be a trait for all Heralds Galactus chooses, arrives at the behest of Starhawk. Starhawk deals with the orbiting ship, while Firelord goes down to the planet to assist the teleported Guardians, though they do win the 4-issue battle with the Starks before Firelord even makes it down. Except Taserface, who will not give up.
Sorry. I am so sorry. I just keep imagining you waking up in the morning, sir, looking in the mirror, and in all seriousness saying to yourself,
You know what would be a really kick-ass name? Taserface!
that's how I hear you in my head.
Firelord, however, ends him very quickly. Meanwhile, a group known as Force, having been introduced an issue or two ago just on a couple pages, are off elsewhere, where we learn they too are after the Invincible Shield. They are Photon, who can fly and has deadly eye beams, Broadside, who is able to draw mass from any planet she's on to augment her own strength, 85, a pink Kree mutant with a mastery of magnetism, Brawl, able to control his density become intangible, Scanner, a Snark, oh yeah, those are things, who can track people across the known universe, Tachyon, a being made of pure light who can fly at the speed of light and redirect energy back to its original source. Make up the team with one other fellow, Interface. He's a leader of the group with a superb intelligence and the ability to alter chemical compositions, and yet could never get his nose back from his grandfather. But they really aren't doing anything right now, so this segue was pointless for the moment. Back to the Guardians, they secure the Stark ship that blew up the Freedom's Lady as their getaway vehicle and get going. Firelord becomes an honorary Guardian of the Galaxy and goes back down to the surface as the newly christened Captain America 2 hops into hyperspace. The Guardians decipher the final clue and head to a planet to get the prize of Antag, but the sentient computer on the planet, Mainframe, as most sentient computer systems like being called apparently, pits them against Force. Oh hey, see, it wasn't that out of place as I thought. First round is Charlie 27 and Martinex versus Broadside and Brawl. Well, let's say that after I get mentally scarred from Broadside trying to, fraternize with Charlie, the fight starts with Brawl shattering Martinex, and Broadside laying Charlie out flat before they're all beamed away. Round 2, this Yondu, and Nikki versus Photon and Scanner. Oh, did I mention that Photon is a Centauri? More importantly, she's probably the last Centauri female, so Yondu is all about wanting to continue the species with her, and therefore won't fight her. Cultural fun fact, the earrings Yondu wears in this series are actually an article of clothing known as a kospa, which are worn as a sign of adulthood and exchanged with the opposite sex as a rite of marriage. Neat. Well, Yondu gets owned by her eye lasers that apparently only she, out of every Centauri, has, but Nikki does pick up the win on this one, actually incapacitating Scanner, but almost killing him before they're poofed away. Yondu, of course, takes Photon's rejection well. Also, we get the dramatic, Martinex is dead! Only reason I'm bringing this up is just I really love the art for this series. Round 3 is Starhawk and Alita versus 85 and Tachyon. Or rather, it would be if Alita and Starhawk didn't have a giant argument, so 85, who I swear is just Burt Reynolds in a Farrah Fawcett wig, can get the jump on Alita and Tachyon can get Starhawk. Though neither really technically get beaten fully, they are both teleported before any major fight really happens. And the final round is Major Vance Astro versus Interface. Well, Interface does beat him by poofing Vance's adamantium patch, so his bare skin is in the air. But silly Interface doesn't know how to turn the shield on to control the minds of the Guardians. It's sad, but a really good analogy for why not just anyone can hold the shield. Interface throws the shield away, and after a great speech about the ideals the shield represents, Vance is judged the victor, and the members of Force are beamed back to their ship. We learn that Mainframe is actually the Avenger Vision, and he gives them the coordinates to help them with a mission that was so very long ago in their history I had almost forgotten about. They leave to go find the lost colony of free Earthmen who weren't enslaved by the Badoon. Go watch the first video and learn all about that. Let's not forget, on their run to the Lost Colony, Martinex is still in critical condition, and Starhawk is dealing with healing him, while the rest of the crew deals with the derelict ship and the energy vampire Malevolence. But apparently she's sent too soon by her father, who I think is Mephisto, just judging by her character design at this point, and leaves when she sees Starhawk. Martinex is back with a restored body. But all is not well, as the internal strife of the team is coming to a head. With Marty's new knowledge, he wants Vance to take command of the team. Charlie gets shot down by Nikki. Oh, and Yondu goes insane, tries taking over the ship so he can find Photon to try and repopulate Centauri. Plus, apparently now Vance can be suitless in his quarters due to something Marty did. At the very least, before everything becomes too hectic with cabin fever, they run into Haven, the lost colony of mutants Magneto led into space around the War of the World times. But as usual, when mutants are in control, humans are the oppressed minority. Going down to the planet, Starhawk grabs one of those lowly humans to give a nice rundown of the history of the planet. Starting with after the Great Injustice, which was basically the Mutant Registration Act, I assume, Magneto led most mutants to the stars, though some stayed for X-related reasons. On Europa, they built ships to go further. When Apocalypse assumably attacked, Magneto sacrifices himself to send ships to the planet Haven, where the legend known as Logan led them to find a spot on the planet to build a city. One of his descendants, Rancor, took charge of the city after ripping out her father's heart on her 16th birthday, as all of Logan's spawn apparently does. Her first act as leader was to enslave the humans, but there are very few mutants now. Yet they are all still so powerful, and the people are so bent on the belief that the Overmen will save them, that they do nothing. Right, do we have all that exposition done? Okay, so they split into two teams, with Nikki, Vance, and Charlie going to rally the resistance, while Alita, Martinex, and Yondu go to try and get a diplomatic solution from Rancor. The diplomatic mission ends kinda the way you'd think, with them being captured and held hostage. The resistance team teleports in only to find the resistance massacred. Vance and the remaining Guardians get the population into the town square, and they hold a frontal assault while Replica, a shapeshifter who's on the side of the resistance, breaks out Alita, Yondu, and Martinex. Then all-out war happens. While all that is going on, Starhawk takes Gerard, the human from before, to a talking volcano which houses the Phoenix Force. Starhawk does get everyone off planet, so the Phoenix Force, now inhabiting Gerard, can pretty much glass the planet, and then flies off into the cold reaches of space. Great plan, I know. Actually, we learned that Starhawk uses Mainframe's powerful computers to teleport the entire populace to Mainframe's planet with the Phoenix as a power source. Yet Charlie and the rest of the Guardians are not happy with being left out of the loop by Starhawk on so many different occasions. But before they can continue the argument, they receive a distress call from Firelord. And what does Firelord need help with? Well, the Starks are back, and Taserface, who was thought dead, has been given an upgrade and a new name, Overkill. Oh, and Replica joins the crew, to Nikki's annoyance, because now she's not the plucky young one. As they reach Firelord, Overkill has all but won. They hop on their transparent spacesuits and go out to fight. It does not go well. Overkill could have, well, overkilled them whenever he wanted, but instead, all the Guardians did while fighting him allowed for a bomb to be planted on their ship so they would not have an honorable death in battle. Oh geez, this guy.
Well, dying is certainly better than having to live an entire life as a moronic shitbag who thinks Taserface is a cool name.
That's enough, kill.
The bomb only cripples the ship, though it would have killed Vance if Alita wasn't next to him trying to get into his tights. As with most things, before they could repair the damage, the Spirit of Vengeance, Ghost Rider, comes in for the attack. He takes out Starhawk, but Alita is able to calm the Rider down enough to clear up the mistaken identity. He thought that they were Universalites, who were responsible for conquering his planet with an oppressive regime that had corrupted the innocent. Well, at least it's not exactly the same thing as the Haven storyline, but hey, Replica is actually part of the Universalites, so Ghost Rider thinks they lied to him, and for that, they must die. But again, he comes to realize that they aren't all Universalites, so he flies off. Lovely. The Captain America 2 is getting repaired as the Guardians go and meet with the High Ruler of the planet Sarka. Unfortunately for them, that's the evil, corrupt planet of religious zealots that Ghost Rider was talking about, and they almost instantly decide that the Guardians need to be put in the indoctrination chamber, since they are infidels, though Yondu and Vance steal priest robes to escape. After having a pretty emotional talk with the crucified Martinex, Replica tries to free them, which fails, though Ghost Rider bursts in all Kool-Aid Man style with Vance and Yondu, and the Guardians are all teleported away. They leave the planet without assisting, since everyone there is actually pretty okay with their government, and not in that freaky cult sense of being okay either. So now that they're traveling through space to go to Homeworld, I can bring up that Starhawk is now intangible thanks to the Ghost Rider attack, and apparently with some flashes to Mephisto gloating about his plan in his plane of hell, laying out that Malevolence is his daughter, and she's working with Force now. Got that? Great, because when the Guardians hop out of hyperspace by Homeworld, Force attacks. Though it goes a bit differently than last time. In his weakened intangible state, Starhawk can knock out Braille. Charlie and Broadside actually do end up hooking up awkwardly. Replica gets found out that she's a Skrull when 85's the Kree do not kill children, and she goes berserk, cause that's a lie to her. Martin X actually starts talking to Interface about teaming up since Protege, the kid that Malevolence wants, shows great power. And Photon gives her a backstory about because she was born with killer eye beams, that her tribe threw her into the woods to die and killed her mother, so she hates all Centaurians now. This all culminates in the 40-page blockbuster issue 16. It begins with Yondu instinctively reacting to Photon's attack by slitting her freaking jugular. Interface reacts in anger, transmuting Yondu's hand to air before they rush to sickbay to try and save Photon's life. Starhawk talks Replica down from killing 85, but Brawl goes down to planet to warn Malevolence of Force calling a truce with the Guardians, and they replace Yondu's hand with a nifty Swiss Army hook. While all that is going on, Alita flies down to the planet to talk to Protege, and Alita and Malevolence have it out. But Protege, the Most Holy, stops to learn more about Alita and her light-based powers. It then lays out that Malevolence is trying to sway Protege, who is actually the Magus and a god that can use any power or skill he sees in use, into being evil, but Alita tries to teach him benevolence, while Malevolence attacks her for it. Long story short, Malevolence does kinda win, but Replica, being of the universal light faith that worships him, begs for their lives. She becomes Protege's plaything, and thus she leaves the Guardians with a tearful goodbye. Back on the Captain America 2, Yondu and Photon come to an understanding, with Yondu giving her his Yaka arrows now that he's one-handed and cannot use a bow. Force leaves with the knowledge that one day the two teams will cross swords again, and with that, the Guardians begin to eat at each other again, this time Major Vance Astro quitting the Guardians and setting a course for Earth to be dropped off. The Guardians vote Starhawk out, but when they arrive on Earth, the cities are in ruins. This is when we find out that it's been about 4 years since they left Earth, while society was still in reconstruction. Going to the remains of New York City, the Guardians run into Terran, a crucial player in the revolution against the Brotherhood of the Badoon. They all go to the sub-basement of Avengers Manor, and here is where we get another history breakdown. We learn that in the 4 years the Guardians were gone, an interactive hologram software became so addictive that the older generation died out, and the kids took to the streets in gangs, with all these turf wars. The strongest and most ruthless gang? Isn't it obvious? It's gotta be the Punishers. Vance and the rest of the Guardians stay on Earth, all except Martin X. Martin X leaves the planet to go back to Mainframe and work out how to make other teams of Guardians of the Galaxy. As Vance takes the leadership of the Guardians, however, he's shot in the head, which is a real feat considering apparently they did give him an adamantium-laced suit last time. Thus, we learn that Dargonite can actually crack adamantium. As the rest of the Guardians begin to fight with the Punishers, Krugar, the Sorcerer Supreme, comes to save Vance Astro's life. However, the fight with the Punishers is not going well, but the Guardians escape thanks to the Catman known as Talon, who leads them to the Bronx, which looks great by the way, but they are cornered. And here is where we learn that the Punishers are actually working for the remnants of the Badoon. As the Badoon order the Punishers to open fire, however, Major Vance Astrovic, out of his containment suit finally, and his hair is looking perfect, throws his shield, taking out the shooters and springing the Guardians into action. Going by Major Victory now, he leads the Guardians and the Commandeers to victory against the Badoon. Krugar accepts one of the communication stars of the Guardians, but not a full membership, and Talon joins the main Guardians. Elsewhere, Martin X is still working on trying to get the details for his Galactic Guardians with Mainframe's help. And I think this is a good place to stop for the moment. Next time we'll get to see the return of Rancor and other great surprises. Stay tuned and see you next week. If you agree or disagree, or if you think I missed something big in these, leave a comment below. While you're at it, give us some suggestions for the next Reader's History of Binging on Comics, or ComicSins that you'd like to see. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and please become a patron. I really don't want to beg, but I ain't too proud to beg. All of that is in the description below. And as always, stay golden, Inklings.